it'd be helpful just to give a little bit of context about Barnet. And although we are one of 32 London boroughs, we are a large borough. We've got the largest population, and we also cover the 6th largest geographic area. Like many other of the London boroughs, it's hugely diverse, and we're really proud to be a borough of sanctuary as well. Our pupil population is over 70,000, and alongside the national picture, we've also seen a significant increase year on year in the number of both children with SEN and, of course, the number of children and young people being supported by education, health and care plans as well. So we're at 4.9% just now, and we know that's just above the national rate of 4.8%, but that has been increasing at a faster rate than nationally. We've got a really high proportion of pupils in our state-funded mainstream primary, and that's one of the largest in England, actually, at a rate of 4.2% compared to the national rate of 3%. Now, if you could move on, thank you. That obviously, we've had to do things differently in order to support our schools, to support children and young people coming into their settings with SEND. We've got a high rate of diagnosis of pupils with autistic spectrum disorder, which is in the top quartile. And it's quite interesting that London generally has a higher incidence of ASD than elsewhere. We're rightly proud that at 49%, the proportion of children with EHCPs in our state funding schools is the 17th largest in terms of the local authority in England, and that's above, again, the national rate of 38%. That's also the same for resource provisions as well. And we know that a lot of you are using resource provisions. If you could move on, please. So I thought that would be helpful just in terms of some context for you all. The number of schools we've got, the number of challenges, as with nationally, are the same challenges that you yourselves and your schools might be experienced. But I also want to add that although we've had to do things differently, we've seen them, and our schools have seen these as really positive opportunities as well. And I think you'll hear a bit more of that as we go through our presentation. So I'd like to introduce Kim now, and she'll talk about the specialist services that we have in place here in Barnet. Kim.
Thank you, Karen. So we have a dynamic and skilled specialist inclusion team that includes both advisory teachers and specialist facilitators who work closely with our schools and young people and their families to improve inclusion, support schools to meet our SEND pupils' needs, and to work really closely with other agencies to support those families. We have a number of leading edge groups as well in Barnet, whose members come from across the agencies, and our parent carers are represented in those meetings. Lived experience is really important to us, and so we have members both who are, for example, on our autism leg, who are both autistic and who have children who have a diagnosis of autism. And we also work really closely with our Barnet partners, such as MenCap and Resources for Autism. So they are also in our leading edge groups. And these groups really help us plan and implement strategies and guidance across the borough. So what's really what I want to highlight about our teams is that we have our sensory team. They have both QTVIs and TODs, and we've got a physical disability and complex needs team. We also have our lovely early years team and our BEAM, which is our Barnet Early Autism Model, and they transition from the BEAM team to our autism advisory team in primary, and then our secondary team, which is secondary and post 16. We offer core and traded services, and that is our also our inclusion advisory team, our IAT team. They work with young people with ADHD, literacy needs, communication and language, and also what's not on the slide but really important is they, support our young people with SEMH. And then of course we have our EP team that is traded and core. And so we offer a variety of support across the borough. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Joann Moore, who's going to explain a little bit more about ordinarily unavailable.
Thank you, Kim. My name's Joann Moore, and what I'm going to look at now is our ordinary available practice and how we've developed that and supported it, and how we've helped schools to embed that further. So we developed the ordinary available document and practice very much collaboratively. We developed that with our Parent Carer Forum. We have an incredibly strong partnership with our Parent Carer Forum in Barnet. We really worked with our schools and our SENCos and our head teachers, and we also worked with our wider stakeholders such as health. So we had a very comprehensive document initially. We then reviewed that document after it's been in place for a period of time. And what was very obvious from the review was that people had the document, but were then needing further support around how to embed the practice, how to use the document so it was helpful to them. So as part of that work and response to that need, we developed our toolkits, which we're going to have a look at in the next couple of slides. As part of that, how we support and how we work with our schools, we also developed our local offer further, and the latest development that we are particularly proud of is our autism page. And again, this has the theme of that co-production with people who are those stakeholders. We worked on it with people and families from our autistic community in Barnet, and we are again seeking feedback about how people are using it, what other areas they want, how they want that to be developed. So that theme of collaboration and co-production is something that's really important to us. And we wanted really to embed that further and, as I say, and develop how we can support our schools to work on that ordinary available practice. Thank you, Lucy. Next slide. So this is our ordinary available provision. What was really exciting in the last workshop, one of the members had said that they'd done a search and actually had really recognised how impactful and how helpful the document was on the Barnet local offer. We've also had feedback from Parent Carer Forum previously that actually, again, the feedback was that it was very useful and very user friendly for parents. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So, as I said, and when we did our review, we realised that schools needed support, and we really wanted to think about how to help them to do that. So then we developed our toolkits, and our toolkits are very much a way that we can embed and use strategies and use the information that's in the ordinary available in the classrooms. When we came up with the idea of the toolkit, there were a couple of things that we reflected upon. One was we wanted to make it that SENCos could just run with it, and the other was we wanted to make it very accessible, that busy teachers and teachers who weren't feeling as empowered to support children with needs in their classrooms could actually feel that they were doing a good job. Throughout our teams that Kim mentioned earlier, we always embed our ordinary available practice and our toolkits. So we have our specialist team, our inclusion team, our early years specialist SEND and standards team that work well with schools and help them to embed the practice and to use the toolkits. We also work very closely with SENDIAS. One of the activities and workshops that we do with SENDIAS is helping parents to understand how they can use the ordinary available documentation, and also helping them to understand what provision might be available. Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen now, if that's okay, Lucy, and I'm just going to show you what a toolkit would look like and what it is. So the toolkits are on our local offer, and we have toolkits in social, emotional, mental health. We have toolkits in literacy. We have toolkits in quality first teaching, which was the very first one that we did. We have toolkits in refugee and asylum seekers, and the toolkits that we developed came from what the schools wanted in order to help them to use and to embed the ordinary available provision. So one of the ones on memory was very much schools were saying, can we have more training? We need more help with working memory and working out how we can support children. They are organised into what areas, I'm just waiting for that to change there, lovely. They're organised into areas of impact, and each area of impact will then have a top 10 tips, which is presented visually, of things that you can do and embed into your practice. So here is communication interaction, 10 strategies that you can use that don't cost anything, you can embed into your practice. Also, we have our early years interactive and resource pack, which has activities, it has targets, and it has strategies. We're going to hear from Naz now how they have used the adaptive teaching toolkits, how they've used the early years resource in their school.
Hi everybody, my name's Nazlee Sinclair and I'm from Cromer Road Primary School, and the teaching toolkits have been absolutely valuable to our staff and our school. They were always in existence, but they've become more necessary than ever before as high needs have increased across all schools. So we recently had training on the adaptive toolkit, teaching toolkit, which we have been working on last year, and actually some really lovely practical support in there that was very helpful, particularly for our teaching assistants that often do a lot of the background and the nitty-gritty work with our high needs children. So we've done a big focus on the working memory and the memory section in there, which has been just really helpful with staff being able to recall, making sure they're giving them thinking time, and using those visuals, lots of repetition and real active listening for the children, with lots of overlearning, memory games, and pre-teaching vocabulary, which is absolutely key for access for our pupils. And then more recently, with the higher needs in our reception, we have been focusing on this document, and particularly with a high number of new staff that are new to actually working with SEND children, and working through section at a time. We've just focused, for instance, this week on the principles of communication with songs, rhymes, Busy Bee, Copy Me, mirrors, peekaboo. So lots of support around low arousal spaces, being really predictable in those early phases with routines, with now and next, using adults for consistency, and being led by the children's interests. So they're very easy to use because there's not a lot of reading. They're full of tips, and they are almost like a map of what to do for someone that's perhaps never worked with children with high needs. And so to really embed that kind of inclusion. So we found them incredibly useful. And what's so lovely is that there's so many different ones available on the website. For instance, we've welcomed some refugee children, and already I'm supporting year 6 staff with, what we can do. Are you doing these things? So that toolkit's there available, but really making them working live in everyday practice. So they've been invaluable, and they've helped direct myself. The SENCos directed that, and actually a great starting point for schools.
Thank you. Thanks, Naz. Another key area that we focus on, and if Lucy brings up the slides, that'll be really helpful. Thank you. As part of that support in embedding the ordinarily available practice is our peer-to-peer support. We are really, really firm believers in celebrating the achievements and also working with our schools so that they can scaffold and support each other. So we do have various different frameworks that schools can access. We have our SEND reviews, which was developed from Whole School SEND framework, and we've developed that and made that very Barnet orientated. We also have our SEND audits, which schools can choose to use, and it gives them a quick audit around where they are on the SEND practice. And we also have our SENCo challenge workshops, our next step planning together, and at our SENCo conferences we always make sure that there's opportunity for schools to share what's going well and what are the challenges. And you just here you've got some of the information about what the schools have said about having that peer-to-peer support, and it means that they can really experience it on the ground, and actually you can have a practitioner who might be 3 or 4 steps ahead of where you are on implementing a project that you want, and all the time you've got the local authority support to navigate where that might be. Thank you. I'm going to hand over back to Kim now. He's going to talk a little bit more about some more things we've developed.
Thank you, Joanne. So on this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how we listened to our schools. And as part of Barnet's You Said We Did approach, we really engaged our SENCos to better understand the areas of need and where they wanted to have more support. And here's really what our SENCos told us. They needed more support with speech, language and communication. They wanted to better address sensory needs in the school. They asked for a consolidated resource, so they wanted everything in one place. And they wanted to have ownership over their training. They wanted to be allowed the flexibility to do the training when it suited their school schedule and according to their school needs. Next slide, please. So in response to what the schools identified as needs, we co-produced the Communication, Sensory and Functional Skills Schools Project, which is affectionately known in Barnet as the CSFS Schools Project. It's a bit of a mouthful. We are immensely proud of this project. We worked closely both with our schools and our parent-carer forums and our parent carers to see what they needed. And this initiative was collaboratively developed between the Barnet Specialist Advisory Team, Barnet Parent Carers, and our therapy teams at Whittington Health. And this project really is multi-layered, both for primary and secondary school. And together we recognized that the key to supporting our schools lies in the resourcing and upskilling of their staff. And as a result, we developed an interactive resource, which Joann is going to show you in a moment. And this interactive resource is complemented by bite-sized video support and online training from our Whittington Health therapists. And also to ensure that our schools are really confident and feel capable and skilled in using these resources, we are providing additional support through modelling, workshops and drop-in sessions. And it really is a multifaceted approach which aims to enable our schools to become really confident and skilled in addressing the specific needs of their children and young people. And I'm going to hand over to Joann to explain the resource to you.
Thanks, Kim. So I'm just going to bring up the, this is actually the language and communication resource. It will hopefully come up on your screen shortly. So this language, the communication and language resource, and also the sensory and physical resource, which Hannah's going to talk how a school have used that shortly, is organised in a very similar way. There are various different sections, and it was around identification, of need. Then it was around creating a communication friendly environment. In the sensory and physical one, it's about creating a sensory and physical environment. And then it looks at different ways that you can support the child through targeted intervention and then through more bespoke packages. What's really, really exciting, and I'm just going to, forgive me because I'm just going to whiz through, as you get a glimpse of the resource, but I'm going to whiz through to one section. So close your eyes because it's not a very sensory good experience at all, but there we are. So if you had a particular child who you needed support with around their auditory memory, you could go to the section on auditory memory here. Then you would download the slide decks that are associated with auditory memory, and then there is a short video that supports that slide deck that's been recorded by our OTs or our speech and language therapists or whoever we're working with. And then so you can access that as and when you need it. And what schools said to us was, we need the training right now. If we get somebody who comes in, or we get a new starter, or we find out that a child's struggling with a particular need, and the training isn't for another 6-7 weeks, and you've missed that opportunity. So they are also all bite-sized sessions. Again, what we know from research and what we know from our own lived experience is that if we can make these training sessions 10-15 minutes maximum, then actually schools have the time and opportunity to engage in them. So that's very much a kind of how the resources are set up. We're going to hear from Hannah now about how she's using it in school, which is always the most interesting part of your talk sessions. Hannah.
Hi everybody. I've recently been able to use one of the interactive toolkits to support a kind of very anxious parent with a recent diagnosis, and it was around trying to kind of navigate who should be referred to and how we can get the support in school. And she wanted to make a referral to the OT service, which wasn't really an appropriate referral. So I was able to kind of get out the toolkit and sit down with her and in that share with her actually what is already available in our school and what good practice we've got in place. And we were able to work through it. It was really visual and really easy for her to work through with me. And we were able to audit what was in place, plan, make next steps. By doing that, at the end of it, we were in agreement. No, we don't need to make a referral to the OT. This is what we've got in place. And she was really reassured that actually in school, we are able to meet needs. We're able we were able to kind of reassure her that actually everything's okay. The sensory needs, we can manage these in school. So for me, having that interactive toolkit, being able to sit down with a parent and just work through that and for them to see what's in place was just fantastic, and it gave me the confidence to be able to say, look, this is what we're all expected to do, and we're doing it. It's great.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Hannah. We're going to come back to Kim now, if that's okay, Lucy, if we can bring those slides up, and she's going to talk about another project.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to talk about supporting our young people with complex needs, which is thinking about an enhanced package of support for our SEND students. And it's called our ICE package, which is an individualized curriculum engagement. And a little bit about the background of this was that with rising complexity in schools, we're all seeing it. We identified a cohort of children transitioning into our reception year whose needs were, you would expect to find it in a special school, and schools identified that they had challenges in supporting these young people, and additional support was required beyond ordinarily unavailable provision for our schools and above what they were already offering. So in our response, a collaborative development came about, and we worked together with our schools, parent carers and other stakeholders, and we co-designed a comprehensive support package called ICE, and we looked at how we could build on the existing provision in our schools. And the key feature really to this package was that it was a multi-agency joined up approach between speech and language, occupational therapy and our advisory teachers to support schools with a targeted learning plan. Our Oakley Special School has developed a wonderful engagement curriculum, and we adopted this and used this to support in schools. Schools are also then supported through our occupational therapists with sensory audits and changes that can be made in the schools and ensuring that the targets were updated for our young people. And our speech and language therapists worked really closely with class teachers and schools to develop communication systems so that these children could express their needs and wants, because many of them are pre-verbal. So the project really has a commitment to empowering our schools and improving SEND outcomes through a collaborative approach, which is continuously being evaluated and responded to. And I'm going to hand over now to Naz, who is going to speak a little bit about our ICE children and their response to having this level of need in their school.
Hi, over to me. So the ICE pupils that were needed an individualized curriculum and engagement program was quite new to us last year. We welcomed 2 children with really quite high needs for a mainstream school, and we actually as a school needed some direction and quite a bit of support, and we were really pleasantly surprised with the level of support we were given as a school. And we had some fantastic teachers for autism, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists that were just really they were just so encouraging and reassuring to our staff, some of which, like in many schools, are new to SEND, some staff, as we know that recruitment can be tricky. And they not only gave them reassurance, they really praised their efforts and identified what as a school we were doing really well, and then gave us some really good strategies on our next steps. We found the Oakley assessment tool particularly helpful for some of our children to really think more carefully where their starting points were and what the steps of progress we were hoping to see, and thinking about that in a more academic way and a pastoral way too. So that was very powerful for us and really did upskill us as a school and give us this opportunity. And this had a kind of a knock-on positive effect, because children that perhaps weren't in the ICE package program really benefited from all those other tips that were given from those professionals that we could quickly transfer and actually suddenly support a much bigger group that weren't necessarily ICE children. So that was a very powerful point of having, I would encourage every school to have an ICE child from that point of view, because it then supports your other very high needs children that may not be on a program. Also, it really helped us to work closely, collaboratively with parents. Parents have an enormously challenging time raising a child with significant needs. Often those are invited to birthday parties, etc. So that creating that ethos from the day go was really, really positive for us. And actually, we feel that we're building on that. We've got a new ICE child this September, which is fantastic. And already professionals will be coming in, the same professionals, which is really positive for us. So as a school, we've got real cultural alignment for inclusion in the, the truest sense of inclusion for pupils with high needs. It's at the heart of what we do at Cromer Road Primary School. It's leadership is given from the head teacher and we're all role modeling that to one another, and we're building tolerance, compassion as a community, I would say, and that works well with our trauma-informed project, which we're also doing. So we felt very privileged to have a nice child, and we are privileged again. We are learning together. Not only do we teach these children, we learn so much from them. They're very valuable. So that's from Cromer Road. Thank you.
sometimes I'm not quite sure what to say after I hear from our schools. I think, alongside many other professionals, I'm personally very committed to inclusion in its widest sense, in its absolute widest sense. And so to hear about schools that not only, you know, support and encourage inclusion in a philosophical sense, but do that in real time, day in, day out, provide confidence to our families so that those children can not only, you know, so they thrive in mainstream settings, is just very powerful for me. And bear in mind, I've already heard this workshop earlier as well, and I'm still, you know, and it still gets me every time. So thank you to all of our schools. And I think I just wanted to hand over to Hannah just for a last comment. Hannah.
Yeah, I just really want to second what Naz has said. Just that it just is, every time we get a new child in, no matter what the needs, because they're always so different, it just is such a great opportunity for us as professionals and as schools to kind of learn. And, you know, I mean, we're really lucky in Barnet, because whenever I do have a new child or anyone that I need support with, I can call everyone in, and then we all get this training, and it's just really empowering. So yeah, I really think that it is such an opportunity, and if you don't have, like, the fewer the SEND children you have in your school, it's just not as great for all the other children as well. So I just feel like it's, the more you have, the more you learn, and the better it is for everyone. Definitely. That's what I want to say.
Thanks, Hannah. Are there any questions?
I think there was a question from Julian in the chat saying, any challenges with engaging academies or MATs with the approach?
Thanks, Lucy, and thanks, Julian. I know we have posted a couple of comments back, but I think there is a very collaborative approach in Barnet across all our schools and settings, and post-16 as well, in terms of supporting children. Now, could I hand on heart say every school is as consistent as every other school? No, and I think that's, you know, one of the targets for us next is to make sure this is embedded, you know, with greater consistency across all of our schools and not just most of them. So of course there are individual challenges, but I think with the support in place, what has been really clear, and there were concerns about this. There was a lack of confidence from some of our schools about meeting the needs of certainly what we affectionately call our ICE children. And it's been really heartwarming to see that, you know, not only have those concerns been addressed, but that more of our schools are just valuing these children and the benefits and the opportunities they bring in a way they wouldn't have done previously if they hadn't experienced it. So personally, I feel very grateful about, you know, the way our schools work with us here in Barnet. Kim?
Can I just add to that, Karen, because I think that it does come with the approach of how can we help. So we've gone into our schools instead of going in, saying this, you have to have this child, whether it's an academy, they would need to take those children in anyway. We've stepped forward and said, how can we help and how can we support you? And I think that, the staff from who are working around this project are stepping in that way and working from where the school is at. So really giving a lot of honor and respect to the schools who are doing fantastic jobs, and then just working with them to take the next step. So I think that the approach has also really helped us.
There's a question about whether any difficulties in getting health professionals involved in the ICE programme.
Yeah, thanks, Joann. So we, as part of the package, we commissioned additional support from Whittington Health with a clear remit of supporting this group of children on that's on top of what they, you know, their universal and targeted and specialist offer, but it was with a specific focus on this cohort. We did it for the first time last year. We're repeating it again this year, and we'll also have it in place next year as well. As with all other local authorities, we, you know, and across health, we know there are significant challenges in terms of funding for both schools and local authorities. But this is a real priority for us, and we know that this is not only the right thing to do, but it also, you know, there's so many benefits, not just for the child and their family or for the schools, but, you know, in terms of those benefits in relation to funding as well, that I don't particularly like to mention out loud, to be honest, but that has been a case of it. So we feel very fortunate. It will be a priority for us to continue this on an ongoing basis and to refine it year on year. Oh, Joann, you poor thing. I hope you get better soon.
Yeah, it's a bit rotten, isn't it? There's quite a lot of it about, I think, at the moment with the COVID. If there are no more questions, Karen, should I put our short video on again? Would that be appropriate now?
I think so. Just briefly, and then just to let everyone know while Joann's getting that up, this is a video that really focuses on the feedback from our schools in terms of our approach and the support that's been in place. But all the references to our toolkits, etc., they can all be found on our Barnet local offer website, and they will be included in the slide pack. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Can I just add, before Joann pops that up, is to please fill out the evaluation form. That we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. So this is we asked our SENCos, we asked our families, we asked our governors to give us some feedback on how they do ordinary available. So this is going up on our local offer website shortly. You've got a little preview now.
Thanks, Joann, and thank you all for attending as well. If you've got any questions, please that you want to follow up on, please feel free to get in touch with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.